Welcome to the Repurposing Podcast, the program that brings you closer to the latest innovations, research and developments happening in drug repurposing across the globe. I'm your host, Alexandra Rodriguez, and in this episode I'm joined by Ana Casas. Originally from Algeciras in southern Spain, Ana is an assistant professor in neurology at University Hospital Essen in Germany, where she leads a research group focused on network pharmacology for neurovascular diseases. In this episode, Ana talks about what led her to pursue her studies in biotechnology and psychopharmacology and opens up about her experience as a young researcher doing a doctorate away from her home country. She also explains how she got involved in Repurposing and became work package leader for this European-funded project, working closely with the Department of Pharmacology and Personalised Medicine at Maastricht University. I hope you all enjoy this episode with Ana and that you get to learn more about her insights into drug repurposing and her fascinating work. Enjoy the episode. Hi Ana, you're the very first guest for our podcast, so thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi Alex, so thanks a lot for having me today here, and looking forward to our talk.
So Ana, I would like to start a conversation today going a little bit back in time because you have a very interesting academic background that combines neurology, pharmacology and biotechnology. So talk me through a little bit what led you to pursue those subjects for your degree and your master's and consequently your PhD?
Yeah, well, I guess this is something quite common in a lot of scientists that we are moved by curiosity in the beginning. I was curious about how the body works. When I was a kid, looking at specific series in the TV, like CSA and all this type of criminology related, biology related, forensic stuff and so on, just to learn how it works. So starting from that point, at the end of my high school, I really had no idea what to do exactly, but I knew, okay, it was something related to biology and discovery and lab related stuff. So that's why I ended up studying biotechnology. That back in the days, it was something pretty new in Spain. Only a couple of faculties had it, so it was not an easy choice, especially in terms of family and so on, but still I decided to start that road, so I did my bachelor. And then when I finished, or at the end, the last year of my bachelor, I started having a lot of interest in pharmacology and how drugs, medicine actually work and how we can cure people and how we can design them, we can improve them, and we can make them more efficient.
And I assume then this is what led you to pursue your master's in neuropharmacology. But before we go deeper into the field and your experience in this area, can you explain to any listeners who might not be familiar with this topic what neuropharmacology is?
So it's, of course, the design and the identification and the understanding of drugs that are specifically working on neuronal, psychiatric and neurovascular disorders in general. So in my case, I later specialized in neurovascular disorders, but of course, neuropharmacology also covers different psychological and psychiatric disorders, like it could be schizophrenia, Alzheimer, depression, and so on. So you have all that umbrella and that is covering that. And at the end, of course, you need to specialize a little bit more.
Ana, you told us about having a conversation with your family about studying biotechnology. Then you went and did your master's in neuropharmacology. But at some point you moved away from Spain because now you are in Germany. So how did that happen? What prompted you to move away from home, let's say, and pursue new academic and professional opportunities away from Spain?
That was also totally by chance, like everything that brought me here, I would say. So I was doing my master, and during my master thesis, I was working as an intern in a lab focused on one specific neurovascular disease, which is brain ischemia. And that lab has had back in the days a collaboration with a group. Now it's actually the main group here in REPO4EU, which was led by Professor Harold Smith, the coordinator of REPO4EU. And my former supervisor, she had a collaboration with him. And that's how we met. So we started talking. We were working on similar compounds back in the days, trying to see how those were working. And when I was about to finish my master thesis, he was looking for someone. So he offered me to move to Maastricht University to do my PhD there, and that's what I did. So I moved to the Netherlands 2 days after I finished my master thesis, and I started working there as a PhD student.
It's just so interesting how things happen in life. Sometimes we're not looking for those opportunities and then somehow they just come to us. Anna, tell me a bit more about that big question you had for your PhD. What was the main topic, the main research area you were looking at while you were doing your doctorate studies in Maastricht?
So in my case, I think it was pretty organic. So I started working on neurovascular disorders, brain ischemia, and related diseases during my master's thesis. And then when I moved for my PhD, I just continued working on that, but more in a more mechanistic way. So trying to identify specific pathomechanisms underlying brain ischemia, trying to identify potential targets that we can modulate when this happens. And then, of course, link to the target potential drugs. And that's what I did during my years as a PhD student, to try to identify and validate a therapy that could actually work in stroke patients later.
I think we all know PhDs come with a lot of opportunities, but also with challenges, because obviously in your case in particular, Anna, you're looking for a new treatment for a very specific disease or group of diseases. So can you tell me a bit more about the complexities of the research that you were doing? Did your journey come with any sort of obstacles or frustrations or challenges, let's say?
Wow, challenges, I think, is it's linked to any scientific career, probably to any career, but especially in science, of course, you need to fight against frustration. It's a constant. So you're trying to move forward, you're trying to fight against something that is unknown, you're trying to discover new things. And in the meantime, you have a lot of technical difficulties, personal difficulties that at the end, everything can be summed up in frustration. If you learn something of a PhD, is how to cope a little bit better with frustration, how to define plan B, C, D, or F around whatever topic. Yeah, how to be sort of resistant and resilient on what you want to do and what you love, but also the personal part, of course. In my case, I moved to a different country when I was 22, 23. So I was abroad when I was extremely young, having to do everything completely alone. From your first day in your new job to, I don't know, renting an apartment, paying your bills, doing your taxes, everything in a country that you don't know anything about, that you don't speak the language. So it's challenging. So you have frustration, I think, in all the aspects, in your everyday job and in your everyday life as a human being. So it's not easy, but it's definitely worth it.
And I'm very sure many researchers would resonate with what you've been describing. What do you think makes it worth it? What kept you going?
You need to really love what you are doing, period. If you think that science is just like another sort of type of job that you can do without driven and the vocation and the sort of the love of what you do, perhaps you're not in the right spot. So the only thing that I feel can make you go through all that is passion, just passion, and believing in you, believing in science, believing in your project, in your research group, in your field, and having this sort of, sometimes even scientists we call it venom. So you have some sort of venom inside of you that is telling you that you really need to move forward because you love what you do. If you don't have that, I think it could be difficult to go through.
Anna, thank you so much for sharing a glimpse into this journey that you've been in since you've been very young and how you've been led by your passion for your research and your field. So let's jump now into your involvement in REPO4EU, in this European-funded project looking at different ways of advancing drug repurposing in Europe and across the globe. How did you end up being involved in this initiative?
So I was already living in Germany when I was lucky to be offered this opportunity to be part of this huge project based on my experience in preclinical experimentation and animal work. So that's how my sort of connection continued with Harold, with Professor Schmidt. We were already working, of course, several years before. We have been running preclinical experimentation together, clinical trials together, and this project, Repurposing, came as an opportunity, as an organic way to keep collaborating, but now from two different perspectives, but still collaborating together.
It's so great to hear that you could continue this collaboration with Professor Schmidt in a different way. So for the listeners who might not be very familiar with Repurposing and the mission of the projects, can you explain how you're collaborating with different partners and what are the expected outcomes or impacts of your work package specifically?
Repurposing is a big consortium where a lot of forces are joined from the very beginning of how to identify new targets to the business development and patenting strategy. So of course, in the beginning of that, there's so many different steps that need to be covered. My expertise over the last years came through preclinical experimentations. I'm a preclinical scientist. What we do is to identify new targets, to validate them using either animal experimentation or patient samples. And that's what I'm doing in Repurposing. So I'm in charge of all the preclinical validation projects there, where we have from in vitro to in vivo experimentation, trying to set the basis for later clinical trials that are already being planned within this consortium. So we are in the beginning of the pipeline, let's put it that way, trying to pre-validate what we are going to check later in clinical trials through either in vivo or in vitro validation experiments.
So you mentioned, Anna, that you get to work with different partners involved in Repurposing. Of course, interdisciplinary collaboration is one of the key aspects of this type of projects. But I'm curious to know what it's like getting to work with colleagues from different fields and different countries. And has it benefited the way you approach your research in any way?
Projects like Repurposing in this type of consortiums are simply unique. There are not so many options as a scientist where you can work in such a big teams all together for one common goal. I mean, one of the disadvantages sometimes as a scientist is that we tend a lot to talk about our business, to talk about our small, teeny, tiny field again and again, and really not go beyond that. And that's a limitation that ourselves create, and we keep doing and doing that again and again. So Repurposing has the huge advantage and the unique aspect of going beyond that and putting people with completely different profiles working together, not with their specific sort of sub goals, but with that one or two ultimately key goals at the end of the project. So at the end of the day, you must work together. And of course, when you have such a frame, all the meaning of interdisciplinary comes to place, right? Because you keep working. In my case, in a normal scenario, I would be working with maybe another preclinical scientist, maybe some collaborations with bioinformaticians and in silico scientists. In principle, that's what it is. But here in Repurposing, I am able to have access to clinicians, talk to them about clinical trends, learn how to design better clinical trials, how to think of a proper business strategy through patenting experts, lawyers, and so on, trying to see how we can market a specific therapeutic intervention and how can we really make it finally to the patient, which is the ultimate goal. So it's a unique opportunity to join forces and work together as a whole, as a team that in the majority of the projects, because of the limitations, of course, of resources or how the goal is or the project is defined, you don't have the opportunity simply. So Repo4EU goes way beyond that, and that's a unique experience, of course.
And as well as working with different colleagues, let's say you're part of this big movement that is Repurposing, which is all about improving the way we do medicine, or like Professor Harris Schmidt, like saying, the project coordinator, we need to redefine the way we do medicine, the way we approach treating patients and curing diseases for good. So drug repurposing has gained a lot of traction in the last few years, and obviously would like to believe that this project is kind of responsible for that. So how does it feel for you to be part of this big movement? Is it exciting to be, let's say, in the middle of these big conversations happening in terms of how to redefine medicine, how to bring new cures to patients, and how essentially change the perception that we have when it comes to drug development, drug research, and anything that has to do with bringing new drugs or repurposed drugs into the market?
I guess this goes back to the question that you asked before about what is your motivation, what is your goal. Basically that, to feel that you are working together with a group of people to develop something that is above you, above any specific subtask or sub-goal that you might have. Something that has an ultimately major role in medicine in a European or even global way. So how can you feel about it? Just excited, right? So you can just feel excited, proud of what you are doing, and thinking that all the work that you have been putting on that and developing yourself as a scientist, because of course being a sort of like part of such a project and leading groups and so on, it's something that you have been growing yourself into so many years. So when you reach that point, you can just feel proud of what you are doing and putting all that excitement to the project and all that energy to the project to really reach what we want at the end of the day. As I said, that's a unique opportunity as a young scientist to make use of everything that you have been working on to build something from scratch, but beyond you.
Well, Anna, we're reaching the end of our conversation, and I can't let you go today without asking you, I guess, quite a big question. So I'm thinking, for any researcher, any young scientist who's listening to our conversation today, what would your piece of advice be to them? You know, drawing from your experiences and everything that you've been through, moving to another country, doing your PhD away from home, being involved in a big European project like Repurposing. If there's anyone listening to you thinking, do I want to get into science? Is this a career for me? Should I go for it? What would you say to them?
Fight for your passion. To my students, I always say the same. Don't let anyone tell you what you can or cannot do. If you think that this is what you want to do, this is actually your goal, probably it will not be straightforward. Most likely. You will have so many problems, motivations, frustration. Just wonder and ask yourself, so where's your passion? And where you really want to go? So whenever you have that question clear, if science is the answer, so if science and being part of this scientific community in any way is the answer, then do whatever you need to do, because it's going to be worth it. But only if your passion is there. I'm this type of person that think that not only one thing can make you happy, but when you find that thing, you really need to fight for it.
Well, Anna, I can't think of a better way to end this episode. So thank you so much for all your insight, all your words of wisdom, and for sharing more about your journey with us. Thank you so much, and I'm sure I'll see you around.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
For more information about Repo4EU and the mission behind the project, please visit Repurposing and make sure to follow the project on all the social media. We're on X, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and YouTube. If you simply type Repurposing, you'll find us there. Until the next one.